Mm. Hello, everyone. So, this is Shay from Astro Healing, and this is actually the second podcast that I'm hosting, I guess. It's not really hosting, it's just sharing with some of my really beautiful people in my life. We do some cool things together, so I'm sharing. So, Jiva Mukti, this is the second podcast. Like I said, I ran one with Tammy, one of my beautiful friends, and today I have with me Lara. And the reason that I started this podcast is because I had a reading with a medium a couple of weeks ago. She came highly regarded, and she straight away had my dad with her because my dad passed last year. And my dad came in and straight away told me that although he didn't always know what the hell I was going on about when he was alive, with all my talk. Now that he's passed and he's in the spirit realm, he is looking back in and saying, I'm really proud of you and the stuff that you do, and I want you to share more in case there's people that really need to hear some of the messages you have to say. And he told me very directly to do podcasts, and he told me that to run them with the people that I've got around me that I already do daily um, chats with. And so here I am. And so I started it out of clear direction from my father. And and so a little bit quickly about me. I don't want to go on too much every time I do a chat about who I am, but I guess a little bit of an intro is probably a good idea. Um, so I've been doing evolutionary astrology readings for the last 14 years. I'm also a Gene Keys guide, um, quantum human design analyst. I blend evolutionary astrology, quantum human design, and Gene Keys readings. And I also am a crystal dreaming practitioner, which is a big modality and a lot to explain. But I actually run those sessions with Lara, who I have with me today. Lara, I'm going to hand it over to you now, and you can talk a little bit about you and who you are.
Beautiful. Thanks, Shay, and thanks so much for having me here in your podcast. I feel very honored. So, I am also a crystal dreaming practitioner and love working with Shay. We do amazing sessions together. And I'm also a holistic therapist, you can say. I work merging different techniques that I've been studying for many years, in different shamanic lineages of spiritual work, as well as psychosomatic work and energy healing and life coaching. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm also from Brazil, but I have been based in Australia for 14 years. And Shay and I have been developing our work together in this technique called crystal dreaming for I think 4 years now, isn't it, Shay? For
Yeah,
about 4 years. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what should we talk about today? I think a great way to start our conversation would be maybe bringing what came up in our session yesterday with a client, right? Because we just went through this big eclipse in Pisces that Shay can tell us more about. And I think Shay, you're talking about how important it is this post-eclipse time as well. And now we're in between eclipses as well. So maybe you can share a little bit about it while we're in this process together.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess to go back a little bit to that part with so a couple of years ago actually I had a lady that was sort of helping me with my website and things like that. Um and she said to me, "Oh, do you know Pam Gregory?" And I said, "No, I don't really follow any astrologers actually because Beatrice, which is my been my teacher of yogic discipline, and also so she's an incredible yogi and she's an incredible astrologer, and we I connected with her. Yeah, like this is the sort of began my deeper parts of offerings as an astrologer. I was always obsessed with astrology when I was a little girl. And then, but it wasn't until I was introduced actually with a different person, but she and this other person, when I did my first yoga training, introduced me to Jan Spiller's book on the nodes. And it was really once I started to get to know the nodes of astrology and the nodal axis that I really it clicked, because I'd been obsessed with astrology my whole life, but I hadn't looked at it in through the lens of past lives and the whole evolution of the soul. And so once I was introduced to Jan Spiller's work, I was like, okay, now I understand. And then from then I connected with Beatrice, and straight away when connecting with her, I would have these recalls of her being my mom in past lives, and my teacher and mentor in many different settings, and being an astrologer. And so she always guided me that more, instead of following other astrologers, it's more try to move the noise away from you and go back into your what you already know deep within you about astrology, and try to really develop your own intuitive guidance of astrology, rather than seeking out heaps of astrologers to read their stuff, because you'll get interfere it'll interfere with you as an astrologer. And so I actually never had looked at Pam Gregory, which is since I have this year, and I realized that she's incredible, but I hadn't at all. And so last year I ran a podcast. Sorry, I didn't run the podcast. I was host on a podcast with Lucy Ellis. I forget what her podcast is called, so I'm really sorry, but she runs a really good podcast station. And and she asked me about the nodes for this year for 2025, and sort of like the galactic weather, I guess, going into this year. And so I on that podcast I was saying, because the nodes, so the south node is Virgo and the north node's Pisces, and not just because of that, but just because of where we're at in the Great Change. So for people that understand the process of the Great Change, it's an enormous deal, because we've got all these mini cycles and macro cycles in astrology, and they're always turning over and beginning again. But never before ever has humanity been, for a start, in the galactic center, and all the mini cycles and macro cycles all ending and beginning again within a time period of 1987 to 2027. And so we've got these like cycles that are like 400 years, that are like 2,160 years, that are 26,000 years, that are 100,000 years, and also a 200,000 year cycle that Greg Braden will talk about with the changing of our DNA. We've got all these cycles ending at one time, and moving through this huge new beginning for humanity, where we are moving from a carbon-based DNA into a crystalline-based DNA. And there's so much to that it takes up the whole podcast talking about that. But this year, because we've only got 2 years until 2027, which is the final harmonic upgrade of this great change, the years as we're approaching 2027 are getting more hectic, because of the processing that we have to do for humanity, and the purging. And this year, the nodes, because it's Virgo to Pisces, and Pisces is obviously the last sign, once we get to Pisces, or like 12th house themes, it's endings, which Pam Gregory will talk a lot about with the eclipse. For me, I'm a Pisces sun, so is Pam. I'm Pisces Mars, and I'm also Pisces vertex, part of fortune, and I'm Pisces. My North Node in Leo is in the 12th house. And whenever I've explored the 12th house as a house for me, where my North Node is, I always get shown at like all dimensions. So Pisces is sort of like all dimensions, and it's really dimensions that we don't consciously know about. So because it's Pisces is sort of like the collective unconscious. And like if we're looking at the unconsciousness, that's like all the void of stuff, of information from all lifetimes, and our dreams, and our everything, that all our junk DNA and everything that's like all in there, and we don't even know, like like we've only probably tapped in already as humanity is to like consciously starting to broaden our awareness out to a like maybe 10% of reality or something. And there's this like a 90% that we still don't even know about. And to me, the 12th house is like the 90% we don't know about. And so when the nodes are ever like Pisces North node, we're really tapping into all this stuff that people have not previously ever known about, and it's coming up. And so I noticed I did watch one of Pam Gregory's now that I've been watching her talk about the eclipse, and she was talking about this year being massive for like karmic endings and endings of relationships and endings of all this stuff and the purging. And yeah, when I did this podcast, I was talking about this is a massive potential for quantum healing on so many dimensions that we can't even consciously even understand the ripple effect of where this healing is actually taking humanity and where all these dimensions are starting to open up and come more into opening. And so, um, which really does tie into like what we do in crystal dreaming, because it's really hard to even give words to what we do because it's like sometimes we do a client session and we don't know after their session how much change is going to happen in their world because like we're clearing so many dimensions of stuff. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I feel like nowadays, as we're going through this purging, like you said, there's so many people, so many narratives that are so negative about what's happening in the world, right? So, we have the 2030 UN plan, and we have all the systems of control that are going on and tightening up. So I feel like so many of these narratives are very negative. So it's refreshing when we have a different narrative like you share, Shay. I love when you talk about it because I don't feel like enough people is talking about what is actually happening in the positive, for humanity after the purging process. Maybe we're so stuck in the negative of it because we're purging.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit more about the positive side to it and the great change and all of that?
Yeah, and I guess it's funny because when I ran the first podcast of Jiva Mukti with Tammy, afterwards we said, "Oh wow, that was really light," and we would have like it was just all positive, and she said we didn't even go into any like talk about like the known conspiracies. Well, they're not conspiracies, but she said we didn't even go there, and I said I think it's because every time we say a prayer before we do these to say what needs to be said for our listeners for the divine highest good and the information coming through, it never ever feels like the truth for as a channel for humanity or whatever information. It never feels like it's supposed to ever be talking like all I can ever go through is the light stuff because that's where we're going. But yeah, so for the fifth, so in 2027, February 2027, is when we take over to the new incarnation cross, which is the rising of the sleeping phoenix. And that's the with the 55 as the gateway. And so I'm on that rising of the sleeping phoenix. 55 is I'm like my sun, my conscious sun. And but before we get and so that 55 is freedom. It's the victim is the shadow state, and then it's freedom as the gift and freedom of the city. And um, it's purging the victim. And the reason I think deeply, the reason why we can eventually get to 2027, and the prophecy is that we can start to become crystalline in our DNA rather than carbon, and we apparently have been a carbon-based species on a molecular structure since 2000, since 200,000 years ago. I think Greg Braden talks a lot about operating from two strands only instead of 12 strands. We were in the ignorance. We were, stuck in the limited density of awareness. And we also were carbon based, and carbon holds karmic trauma, I guess you could sort of say. So we sort of played victim because we were holding a victim space, I guess, on earth of like victim to our experiences, like victim, like life's happening to us and we're a victim of that. And we come here to heal karma. And it's like, the slave planet or the planet where we come here for suffering because on the other planets we might not be in a body that feels as dense to the carbon reality as experiencing emotions and loss and loved ones pass. It feels like the end. And we sort of just don't see the full reality when we're incarnated here. And that's part of the game of coming here, I guess, to work on karma with faith, even though we don't know what the faith is, and just to still not see ourselves as a victim of suffering. Um, but when we're in crystalline, we won't hold trauma the same way. So we don't really have to play victim anymore, because we're not going to be holding trauma the same way. We don't hold it within us, so we don't feel that sense of suffering as a victim. It's just a different way. I think that we can't even really fathom that we're going to be experiencing reality from. But now until 2027, we're in the process of purification, and in the gene keys, because they are codes of DNA, and there's rings of codon rings that are like made up of molecular, and the purification rings 13, gene key 13 and 30, I have them as well. They're all part of the Kali Yuga thread. And we're in the process of purification now. So we're processing and purging trauma from our own karma, our our 14 generations of ancestral trauma and karma, and collective karma. And we're doing like the big, like I was saying yesterday to our client, we're doing the big work now. Like we're really getting in there and trying to churn and purify and burn away all the collective victim suffering karma that we've had as a story for humanity while we've been in this ignorance. And it needs to get done, because when the purification finally has happened, these rave children that are fully already crystalline DNA are ready to come in on a sort of clear slate. But we need to do the purification to make way for that. It's sort of like having a fresh piece of paper, I guess, for them to actually even be able to come.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we can be in this new state of reality, which I think even Pam Gregory, Richard Rudd, like they all know the state, but they really don't know. Like even Richard Rudd, listened to him speak with Pam Gregory around this eclipse the other day. He was talking in his own way, and she was talking, and um, still saying like we really can't even fathom 20 the after effects of 2027, because we can't even make way for that until it's clear, and it's going to be a completely sort of perceiving reality in a totally different way than what we already have been.
Mhm. Yeah. So interesting. And this concept of karma as well, right? So normally we go across so many lifetimes. It's so hard for us to understand what justice is, right? When we look at reality across time and space. But from my own experience lately and observation of my own reality, I feel like lately is almost like if I do anything out of my integrity, I get like slapped straight away. It's like there's no more delays with karma. It feels like I get the consequence straight away now, and I see that in so many people in my life too. Yeah, do you find that as well?
Yeah, 100%. I told Archie, like my eldest, that the other day. I like whenever he does listen to me, like he's 16 and a half, so he doesn't always want to listen to his mom, but um he's walking a big path at the moment. And I said that to him very much the other day. I said, like, in the past, people might not have the negative karma of their actions, they might not have faced that for until the next lifetime, or maybe until a few lifetimes, really. And we see that in our journeys. Sometimes it's like goes back to lifetimes and lifetimes ago that they're healing the karma from now. But now it's instant for the people that are doing a lot of trying to do a lot of collective healing as well for the collective. They can't mess around with any of their own personal karma. It's sort of like if you go out of alignment a bit, you're just going to get an instant slap, like directly. It's like almost within that day now.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's no time, there's not much time for personal karma at the moment because we're trying
Yeah.
to, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then you know exactly what it is as well. There's no mistakes. Yeah.
And he knows, like, even as a 16-year-old that doesn't want to face that, he's like, oh my God, like, he'll even say, I think that was from what I did before. Yeah, I think so. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And maybe we should talk about how crystal dreaming in our sessions, how people can accelerate this purging process by, or this purification by doing these types of sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to talk about, you're good at explaining our sessions? Like
Okay.
when people talk, like ask about crystal dreaming, it's so hard to give it words, but I feel like you actually understand how to explain it better. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, so my way of understanding and describing crystal dreaming is that it is a type of soul journey, or some people call it a shamanic journey. But what we basically do with we work with crystals and hence the name. And through a process of meditation and the expansion of consciousness with the use of crystals, we can achieve a state of enhanced awareness of our reality and our bodies across time and space. So, in many ways, we could compare it to different types of hypnotherapy, but the person is completely conscious and aware the whole time. So, and we can access different types of consciousness in that state. But you remember everything, you're fully conscious, and you're present the whole time. I think that's the key difference, maybe with hypnotherapy, for example. And so, what we do in the sessions is that we open up the field and our awareness, and from this space, we can perceive different things that are affecting our energy field and our balance, you can say, right? So sometimes those things are, traumas from this lifetime. Sometimes it could be trauma from past lives, in womb, or even ancestral traumas that get passed on. Sometimes we could be dealing with different types of entities, attachments, even implants. It could be anything. It's we never know what to expect with each session, but we just deal with what comes as they come. Yeah. So, and in these sessions, we can clear things in a very efficient way. So across time and space, and even in the way that Shay and I work now, right? Sometimes we can clear different types of packages of experiences related to certain emotions. So we don't necessarily even have to go into the stories anymore. We can just do many different types of clearings to really open up the person's field, and then the result of doing the sessions is an increased connection with their intuition, with their spiritual self or higher self, or I am presence, or God, great spirit, however source, however the person wants to call it, and their spiritual team, so they can get clear guidance and alignment in their lives. You
Mm.
want to add anything, Shay?
Um, yeah, yeah, no, that yeah, that's why I wanted you to do the talk about it because yeah, because we do a lot of healing on so many dimensions that um it sometimes is hard to, like, if someone asks me what crystal dreaming is, I always freeze a little bit because I'm like, well, there's a lot, like, there's a lot. And I think the whole process, I guess it comes down to a lot of forgiveness because we just get this bigger understanding of um almost like coming to earth to play all these different characters in a movie. and on a soul level, our soul will choose, to play all these different roles, and sometimes the roles are more um, because that person has to do something big for the collective and show them a different frequency or a way, and sometimes the roles are more directed to their soul, to soulmates, like, and soulmates being like, Archie's a soulmate of mine, but he's my child in this life. So sometimes we have got all these things that we still need to resolve within our soul fractal, um, and I guess, yeah, for me, it's like we are come to Earth like a character in a movie. And when we go outside of the little mundane like stories that we tell ourselves in the box, we see the whole tapestry of the interactions of our fractals and each other, all of these fractals of souls and spirits that all come from source, to have our experience, and we can see the understanding on that bigger role. So we get to those points where we can forgive people that have done in other lifetimes really horrific things to us, or ask for forgiveness if we have done something to other people, because we can sort of see the tapestry of why we played that role in the first place. And what was the purpose of playing that role. And like, with our client yesterday, it's like sometimes souls come in and they're really like they've played the game on all levels of that character. So sometimes they've been really within the victim of the witch trials, say, and then sometimes they've been the perpetrator, and then sometimes they've been the partner to the victim, and then you see how it all they come through in these different lifetimes where they're learning about that particular experience from different angles. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the forgiveness is a big part of crystal dreaming, just the understanding and forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes we're holding on to all those different experiences in a very unconscious way as well. And crystal dreaming really brings that to your full consciousness and awareness, which is really great. Like I've had when I did my first crystal dreaming session, like as a client receiving it, it was like full revelations. It really is very deep. The sessions can be very deep and very transformative in many levels. And yeah, like my first session, for example, most of the sessions that whenever I receive crystal dreaming, it's as deep for me as many of my ayahuasca journeys
Yeah.
have been. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before when we've talked, but like I guess the difference for me with our crystal dreaming compared to ayahuasca is like for ayahuasca, it's still a bit like trying to pull the threads consciously together is sometimes confusing. But with crystal dreaming, the way you see past lives is more, you can see it more, a little bit more consciously, directly, so you can understand the story more. And like Lara said at the beginning, we work in a way now. So one of like Rayam Richards is the creator of this modality. But then we have a teacher that's also one of his really long-term, he trained her up a long time ago, Jude. And she's also been a teacher for me and Lara, helping us, teaching us her way. She's in New York. Is she in New York?
Yeah.
And she sort of works with like the bundles of the themes, like Lara said, through the energy centers, and you don't even have to directly know the story so much, and you can sort of bundle together a lot and clear a lot of emotions at once. And and for me, when we work together, I still like to bring it because I'm visual. I'm quite visual, like I'm very visual probably. So I see it when we work together. I see like the person's past life as a movie, and it shows me sort of like, it shows me like visuals. And the only reason sometimes I share them, even though we don't really need to know them anymore, we can clear the whole bundle of that emotion. which is tied to many lifetimes and themes, um, and actually is so effective that we don't need to know the story. But the reason I guess sometimes I'm compelled to tell them the story is because it gives them a little bit of that understanding as well of going, oh, okay, like I get it. Like I see what role I've played in that character and why I played that role during a time of ignorance for humanity. And now I can see why I would forgive anyone that plays that role again. So it's more like um that part of the story is to just give that bit of understanding, I think, sometimes to like, yeah, to this theater of life that we come to earth and play. Yeah, and same like when I did the crystal dreaming um sessions with Rayam. And I guess like when I did this podcast with Tammy, we did talk about a little bit about how Rayam's been doing this for 40 years and it was a couple of years ago we went and did his training sort of early on for the advanced and express, where now in the express modality he gets people to sort of come in and connect with their higher self first, and then they go back to anything unresolved. And because they've already merged with their I am presence through their connecting with their higher self and then I am presence, they're so in that expanded state of love that then if they go back into seeing traumas, they sort of don't care so much about it. They're sort of a bit like, oh, that little trauma, I can deal with that. It's no big deal. Whereas his original modality was like, go into the story of the trauma and fix that first before you can connect to your higher self or your team. But now he's sort of really big on he's loving his new way of doing his modality where you connect first to your I am presence. And yeah, from that state of love, you sort of so aware that the dramas of life are not as big of a deal. And I think coming back to this victim freedom gene key for humanity, we're getting more clever at that now. We're sort of starting to, the awakening and the realization for people is there's a knowing that we're not just blaming everyone out of our ignorance and like everyone's to blame and we're a victim of all of this life and we did nothing wrong and we just life just happened to us and someone did something horrible to us and we don't understand it, so we're going to stay victim forever. And instead it's like freedom from that whole mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is a shift of perspective, isn't it? So when we are able to see sometimes, sometimes when you go through trauma, we are so attached to a specific story of what happened, even biologically, right? We create a certain neurological pathway that gets reinforced every time something happens. But then when we do these types of work, and that's why I find that, including spirituality in, psychology or different healing modalities is so important because we can add this extra perspective. And I really believe in working together and also integrating, the traditional approaches with, or, depends what you call traditional,
Mm.
but the Western approaches with the traditional approaches, or, yeah, the more accepted approaches by society with the more spiritual approaches.
Yeah, 100%. Because at the beginning of the year, this is another little layer of my story. I decided I'd go to uni and do counseling, and I failed. And I found it very because I guess I work quite fast now in the realm of being able to see the whole story, and then I went back to like talk. I'm training in
Mm-hmm.
mainstream talk therapy, where people like Jude said, people will go to a counselor, and in America, like every person has a therapist, and they could be with that therapist for like 10 years just chatting through their victim story. And it starts to get more ingrained. It's really hard for people to get out of their victim story if they're just going to a therapist every week and talking about their victim story. It becomes more of their story and identity. And we're doing something where we're going, let's merge with your higher self, and you team of beings that love you unconditionally. Then let's merge with your I am presence. And from that expanded state of oneness where you connected to source, let's go back to earth and see where you're still got entanglements in your own karmic story. And let's quickly resolve it on a quantum level. And then you come in and you go, oh my God, I decided to play that role of the victim so that I could learn that from it. And you're sort of done instantly by an hour and a half session and going, oh my God, I'm not victim at all. And whereas with talk therapy, you go, oh, I'll go to 10 years and talk about how I'm a victim. and, and it becomes,
Yeah.
you're stuck. You're just stuck in your, I'm so victim to this story. I'll just keep telling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in saying that, sometimes also the person has been avoiding feeling their emotions, and sometimes the work that we do is really about holding presence and processing emotions, which is trapped energy in the body. So a lot of the times when people just avoid feeling what they have been holding for so long, that's what creates this energetic blockages, really, because people are just still holding on to that energy, right? So a lot of the times, but with crystal dreaming, we can go to the origin cause of that story, which sometimes happens in other lives as well, and it's just an accumulation of a repetition of that same story, right? And then when we can release that and release the emotion, then we see a transformation happen as well, right? And then the person can access this other perspective as well. So both things are true. Yeah. And each
Yeah,
case
and
is
you're
a case.
100%
Yeah.
right with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because when I was trying to explain it, then it sounds like it really is like a bypass then, because if you just know the story and go, oh my God, like I'm not a victim of that story. If you just understand it on the mental level, but you haven't properly dealt with it, then yeah, you also haven't dealt with it. And so it can't just be the level of understanding without having it move out of your body.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I guess because we're working with, spirituality and with our teams, they already know like what the person needs. So we are really just following the person's guidance and their spiritual teams and ours and our intuition to know what the person really needs, because sometimes the person has already done that and they're just stuck in the story, right? So what they need is really to just look from that perspective, and other times they just really need to release some emotions.
yeah,
And that's why we never know what's going to happen in a session, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was gonna say something else that slipped my mind now. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we work really well as a team. I remember because I don't often, never really ever like gone and said, oh, we should work together. Like, yeah, so for people that know human design, because of the like Sleeping Phoenix cross that I'm on, the 20, I'm got the 10, 20, 34 channel, and it's the channel of individuality. And it's like sometimes those individuals work good on their own. And there's not a lot of like, I don't sometimes need to work with people so much. But with Lara, even when we did training together, I was like, we should work together because it was like clear guidance, we should work together. And it's been, yeah, like 4 years of exploring these processes together. And I feel like it's really, I love working with, we do really complement each other a lot in these when we're doing these sessions to people.
Yeah, and we've been really refining our techniques as well. And I think what really differentiates our work with other practitioners of the same modality is that you, Shay, you have all this astrology background as well that we bring into the session, right? And I also bring my other studies, with plant medicines and Umbanda and different, spiritual lineages and traditions, and we bring it all together. And then our psychic senses are so complementary as well, right? Because you're more clairvoyant and I'm more clairsentient and clair-knowing, and then we just get a really good picture of what's going on for our clients when we're working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, with the astrology, like because with Crystal Dreaming One in person dreaming, like his original um modality, like I knew when I had my own sessions with Rayam and then my guides told me I need to train in that modality and incorporate it with astrology. I knew that I couldn't bring astrology in straight away. I just couldn't let like interfere with a person's journey because I've got to let them journey to their own places they need to go without me telling them their astrology. Um, but now because we do the advanced technique together and express where we can journey for the person as well when they're, to yeah, I just it's there in the blueprint. Like it's their astrology chart. Like, and when if someone asks me what part of their astrology chart is their past lives or where they've got to go, it's not one thing. Um, it's like I look at the chart and if I say and pray to their guides to show me something, it's something different for each person in a way, but I'll sort of know the main wound core theme bundle imprint that's still really playing out now. And the good thing about that is our biggest traumas are where our gifts are as well. So, when we go back into like our past lives and it comes up through our like South Node, our deep Pluto imprint or our skip steps or something, which is the main ones in evolutionary astrology. Um, where there's like the past life wounding and traumas is also because we've got the most amount of skills and experience in that area. So as soon as you clear the blockages from the traumas of that theme, then the gifts just are ready to like come up to the surface. And um yeah, so the trauma, yeah, so it's a gem to go into your traumas and clear them because if you go in there, um, because people go, why would you go back to past lives for no reason? It's like it's not no reason. It's just to clear whatever's still blocking that in really deep gifts that we bring and mastery that we bring to this.
Hmm. Yeah. And in saying that as well, we can do a lot in one session, but we highly recommend doing a few to go through a big transformation. We do like to see people's progress as well, right, Shay? So we recommend at least 3 sessions once every 2 weeks
Yeah.
with us. But if you only just want to do one as well, that's totally fine.
Yeah, because by the third session, like they really understand what's being done. Um, like they understand what we're doing, not on a because we've explained it to them, just because they've gone through the process energetically, so they understand what it's about and they really understand how to move forward with that effect. Um, so it is like a big clearing to make way for the realignment of their divine plan. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And something else that I wanted to add is that I think people don't realize how common attachments are and how many people walk around with, other beings following them, or, you know, how easily it is to, get energies attached to you if you don't protect and clear yourself often. And yeah, maybe we should even do a whole podcast on this topic, Shay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I haven't really encountered many clients that didn't have any.
No.
Yeah.
No, I know. And it is a big question now because people are confused with um because with the Great Awakening, people are realizing that there's beings from other dimensions that they're sort of been not told about. And people get really confused then are they is the I there's so many spiritual like platforms even on Facebook groups that I've been part of in the past. I don't really go onto Facebook a great deal at all anymore, but like even in them groups, I see people sort of arguing about if the negative thought form is their own trauma and there's no such thing at all about an entity outside of themselves. And then other people that are very much like, no, there's entities and they're external entities. And then, with everything humanity's been through in the last 5 years, there's so many people that are confused about what are these beings and what are entities and where do they come from and are they just your own voice that or is it your own shadow polarity or is there actually entities? So I think yeah, we should definitely do a whole podcast on chatting about that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And still stay really light today and positive with the freedom.
Yeah. So basically, this is how we are helping people go through this purging process.
Yeah. So that they can be more the great change is like where you let go of all your control and trying to control reality because you just had no chance of it anyway, even though in patriarchal ignorant times it looked like we had control over our own reality because karma was moving slower. You never had control anyway. And so now we're letting go of all control and realizing we trust have faith in the divine plan and our part in it. Um, but then we have more control over our own mastery and our own energetics. And I think it gives people more skills to feel like they're not just freaking out about is there an entity or what even is that and feeling like they've got no like they're just a total victim. We'll come back to the victim, but now instead of victim with people on earth they think they're victim to, now they're victim to like entities or something. But yeah, we're giving more skills so that you go, no, you're still in control actually of your own energetics, but this is how you
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Because in the end, we are sovereign,
yeah,
and other beings only have access to our energy if we give them permission.
yes,
And
yeah,
and that's what I really like about crystal dreaming as well, because we can do it in a very simple way. And as we partner in this work with our clients, right? Because it's like partnership work, they are learning in the process how to deal with these energies, right? So a natural result of it is learning how to, interact with these energies again. If they ever come into their field again, they will know what to do.
yeah. And I think that's one of the parts about Rayam that's really like awesome as a teacher of this modality and creator because he's very bold with he's very courageous as a crystal dreaming shaman. Um, to when there's beings that are darker, like he's very bold as in um, how he interacts with them. And in the teaching of this modality, some people get freaked out and go, I'm never going to do that if I have to encounter that entity. But for him, he's like always, teaching people how to empower themselves as a sovereign being and say, oh, thanks for coming when I asked and teaching me about hatred and anger, but I don't need your teaching anymore, type of thing, and then come back to the light, and um yeah, it is very empowering actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and a natural result from doing this work, like you said, Shay, it is greater confidence and sense of self
Mm.
and connection with your own self and with your spiritual guidance. And from that place, you can have more trust and skills to navigate life's challenges, right? Because it's not like, oh, you're going to do this and there'll be no more lessons or challenges in this incarnation. It's just clearing the way to give people more alignment and greater access to their own inner guidance so then they can navigate life and have the right tools to use when things come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very empowering, and our aim in these sessions in working with people is for them not to need us,
Yeah.
right? So yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lara. I think we decided to try to keep these podcasts around the hour mark just because sometimes we feel like we could just go on and on and on and talk about so many things. But
Yeah.
yeah, we thought we would try to keep them to the hour mark, and yeah, keep excited to keep doing these podcasts and so much to keep talking about and sharing.
Yes, thanks so much, Shay.
Thanks so much, Lara. Yeah, I think I'm grateful. I said to Tammy too, I'm grateful for Dad telling me to do this because it's been more fun for me. Like, the session, like talking to Tammy and now talking to you, it's just fun. It's fun. You get to just be of service, hopefully, in the way that you're meant to be of service to anyone that needs to hear this. And then you just chatting to your friends, and yeah, it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and great navigations of this purging process, everyone.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yeah. 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 The like Pam Gregory says, like these are the eclipses are, you feel the effects of the next 6 months after an eclipse. And um yeah, like a lunar eclipse is always you've got one of the bigger luminaries, sun or moon, hugging the north node and one hugging the south node. So they're illuminating both the south and the north, which is the whole evolutionary arc theme for humanity. Um, when we get to the solar eclipses, like the new moon eclipses, you've either got a solar eclipse that hugs the north node or the south node. And it's actually quite different. I really liked that she talked about that because I always think that like people only that don't know astrology that deeply will like hear the grapevine, oh, it's a solar eclipse and talk about it, but they're never talking about if it's hugging the north node or the south node. It's a very different thing if a solar eclipse hugging the south node compared to hugging the north node, because hugging the south node is where humanity's like really clearing past themes, and then hugging the north node is really the intent for humanity to evolve towards the north node's energy
Mhm.
and bring in something new. But yeah, on a lunar eclipse, because we've always got one of the sun or moon hugging both nodes, you're getting lunar eclipses are big in the way that they're pulling out the whole arc of evolution in that whole contrast and illuminating it from the two biggest luminaries of sun and moon. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you, Lara. Thanks everyone that listened, and I don't know who will be on next to this because I've got my brothers and sister-in-laws, and they're all in this little group chat that are supposed to come on at some point, but they don't like to commit to me as much as my friends do. Like Lara and Tammy are more committing to me with this, but my brothers will go, "Oh yeah, we'll do it next week, or we'll do it next week." Anyway, someone's going to come on next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lara. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.